Baclofen effects on alcohol seeking and consumption. In previous studies, it's been suggested that GABA B receptor agonism represents an effective approach to treating addictive disorders. Baclofen, which is a selective GABA B receptor, has been seen and investigated as a potential treatment for alcohol use disorder. The reason to look at the effects of baclofen is that it's been found in rodent models to reduce alcohol intake and suppress the acquisition, maintenance, and the reinstatement of alcohol-seeking behavior. Therefore, baclofen could be a possible treatment for alcohol abuse disorder. So, how was our study carried out? It was a between-subject, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled human lab experiment. The individuals were selected, excuse me, the individuals in the study were made up of non-treatment seeking male and female individuals who were 21 to 65 years old. They had currently a diagnosis of alcohol dependence as well. The sample was made up of a group of originally 39 individuals, and after there were 5 dropouts from the experiment, the final sample included 18 participants that were in the baclofen group and 16 participants in the placebo group that came to a total sample size of 34 individuals. Now, the experiment was carried out over a timeline and a procedure of administering baclofen and then taking blood samples, then administering alcohol, and again repeating that procedure over and over. The sampling of blood, administration of alcohol, sampling of blood, and then administration of baclofen over a timeline that we see up here in the top. What rather begins the process was the patient, when he's leaving home, takes the very first dose of his baclofen. When they arrive at the facility, there's a blood draw done and a base concentration of alcohol and baclofen. A couple hours later, the test subject takes another second dose of baclofen, and then we wait an hour. Or rather, the researchers waited an hour. The initial dose of baclofen that was taken at home was 15 milligrams per day for 3 days. The experiment was carried out during a full-day visit to the facility. The participants were asked to abstain from consuming alcohol 24 hours prior to the experiment and had to have a blood alcohol content of 0 in the morning to proceed with the study. They were asked to take their first daily dose of medication, as I said, here at home before they headed to the facility. Standardized meals for all of the participants were served, and participants took their second daily medication dose here at 11 a.m. This was done in order to have an hour prior to the laboratory experiment beginning to allow participants to receive this second dose of baclofen. You know, even teachers can make a mistake, and I spoke wrongly about that. Well, everybody can make mistakes. The schedule was set up like this to allow the participants to receive a second dose of baclofen or the placebo an hour prior to the laboratory experiment beginning. Hopefully that makes that statement a little clearer. During the process of alcohol consumption and blood draws, there are questionnaires that are presented to the participants. They consist of questions related to alcohol urge. Once again, alcohol urge. These are AUQ, which stand for alcohol urge questions. Then again at 12:55 p.m., a second blood draw is done. And at 1:15, the process of alcohol priming begins. Alcohol priming is where a participant is presented a priming drink of alcohol to be consumed within 5 minutes. Participants then rated their craving for alcohol using the alcohol urge questionnaire at this point right here, as we just said. Then the blood draw is done. After the period of alcohol priming, another blood draw is done at the same time that another alcohol urge questionnaire is done, and then a different test called, excuse me, a different test called the not test, but questions, set of questions called the drug effect questionnaire is administered at this section right here. As we move on to the final section of the experiment, this begins around 2 p.m., where the alcohol self-administration portion of the experiment begins. Now, this 2-hour session, participants were given the opportunity to self-administer up to 8 drinks at their leisure. There was an alternative reinforcer that the participants would receive $3 for every mini drink that was provided that they did not consume. Each one of these mini drinks was designed to raise the blood alcohol concentration by 0.01. Sorry. I'm very sorry. I've got such a frog in my throat tonight. Each mini drink was intended to raise blood alcohol content by 0.015, with a safety limit of 0.12 being set, where once the participant reached this level, they were then removed from that session. After this 2-hour period, then the administration of alcohol and baclofen is over, and a blood draw is done 10 minutes after the period ends of the alcohol self-administration. Then we have another blood draw done, and then the patients are placed into an inpatient admission until their blood alcohol content reaches 0, and then they're discharged. That's the flow and timeline of the experimental, or rather the experiment. Basically, what we're seeing is that the greater the urge, the higher the consumption of alcohol during a drinking session. So now let's look at the link between how high the baclofen concentrations are in the bloodstream as compared to the urge for alcohol. We're going to look here, and when blood draws were taken, the higher the concentration of baclofen in the bloodstream. Over here, we're looking at, the lower the drug effect questionnaire score of I would like more was seen to be. Once again, I jumped the gun. I should have explained first this vertical axis, the y-axis, where the drug effect questionnaire is basically a set of questions saying, would you like more of the substance? Well, as the baclofen concentrations in the blood system go up, the score of I want more drops from a high down to a low as those concentrations increase, showing that there is a link between baclofen and a reduction of the urge and the desire to consume alcohol. And so to sum up that last graph, the conclusions of the authors were that administration of baclofen uncouples the link between an initial drink and subsequent consumption afterwards.